Hello and welcome back once again to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. This is episode 54. John and Wendy talk to Tiffany Kuehl. I'm your host, John.
And I'm Wendy. How are you, John?
I am well. We typically don't talk weather. Unfortunately, I know you and our guest tonight are suffering bone-chilling cold.
Yes.
And so thankfully you're both inside, I hope, and warm and staying that way. I have to say, though, I'm thinking about you, especially I am heading out to California for work.
Oh.
What a treat. What a treat.
But it's cold in San Francisco too. So I don't know what part of California you're going to.
I will be south of LA. So I should be
nice.
Fairly nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure some of you will see posts on social about it. Wendy, we had a tremendous kickoff to the chat season.
Yes, we did.
Well, actually, we're pulling back the curtains. We had our chat last night.
Yep.
For January. Tremendous turnout. At least one new person, which was great to see.
Yeah.
And great conversation about 2019 and what people were working on. Some people don't like resolutions, so we say they're goals,
wishes,
things to improve
dreams.
ourselves. I was super excited.
Yeah.
Like I said, I thought it was a great way to start the year for sure.
Oh, most definitely. It was a fun conversation. I love seeing the people jump in, and it made me giggle how many people were posting afterwards. Oh my gosh, I missed it.
Well, even though we say it at the end, we'll say it at the top. Yes. The fourth Sunday of each month, including December this year for 2019. Fourth Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yep.
We're there. So next month is going to be performance management.
Yep.
We'll get the questions out beforehand, but we'll be talking performance management. When do you want to pull back the curtain a little more and let people know about what's going to be going on this summer?
Oh, yeah, because it's going to be exciting. June, the fourth Sunday in June is actually the same Sunday as SHRM kicking off. So we will have our chat. Still trying to figure out how to do it. I think it's going to be epic. And it's also the 2-year anniversary of the very first Not at HR Social Hour. I was going to say not at SHRM. It was the first not at SHRM
Well, it
chat.
was a not at SHRM chat.
It was, yes.
But no, yeah.
Which led to.
I'm really, yeah. I am super excited for June. I've been driving a lot for work, so I have a lot of time behind the wheel, and I think a lot about it. It is going to be quite exciting. We're going to obviously announce more as we get closer, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It will be very unique in that it is going to be live during the event. So more to come. But enough about chats.
Yes.
We got a great guest. I'll let you make the introduction and we'll get started.
Yes. I'm so excited to welcome Tiffany Kuehl tonight. She is my neighbor to the east in Minnesota. Just keeping it short and sweet with her bio tonight. Recruiting, HR, baseball, movies, volunteering, and she is the Minnesota SHRM director. Tiffany, welcome to the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast. We are excited to have you here. And our first question, what's in your glass?
In my glass right now, I have a little bit of coffee in my mug right now.
Very appropriate, all things considered up your way.
Yes, a little bit of mocha to get me through the night.
Tiffany, I have to say before I ask my first question, you probably don't remember, but when we first met was in DC at SHRM, and you were so kind to me. You kind of took me. We were out on the conference floor, I think, during the event, opening night event, and you kind of took me and shepherded me around, took me with some of your pals, and I can never thank you enough for that because that was I didn't know a lot of people yet, and it was so kind of you to do it. And unfortunately, I haven't really talked to you a lot since then. It seems like sometimes I don't know a lot of your backstory. How exactly did you land in HR as a career?
Well, first off, you are so welcome. And I absolutely do remember connecting with you live and in person in DC. Happy to shepherd newbies around, so to speak. Part of what I love doing is making connections with people and making sure that people are introduced to one another and connected. As far as HR, so my undergrad is in secondary education. So I went to school to be a high school teacher, ended up getting into a corporate training role with a restaurant company. And part of that role, the training function was under the HR umbrella. And part of my role was to teach managers HR basics. So not only was I part of the overall HR function, but part of my role was also about understanding kind of HR 101 and then helping new managers or managers transitioning into more senior level roles, helping them to understand kind of the basics of HR, especially when it came to employment law and recruiting and employee engagement, employee relations and things along those lines. And then after that role, I kind of transitioned into a generalist role that had some employee development components to it. It was primarily employee development, and then took on some employee relations, and then transitioned from that role into talent acquisition, which is where I've spent most of my career.
Yet another teacher. I love it. My master's in education. A few of us running around.
Yes, it's becoming. We have your own little squad.
Yeah. Yes.
Tiffany, you have been in talent acquisition for a while. You've done both corporate and agency, or inside and outside recruiting. Each of it does have its advantages, but do you have preferences? And what are the advantages of each from your, the recruiter standpoint?
So I don't have a preference. I never actually imagined that I would be on the agency side of talent acquisition, just given, leading talent acquisition functions and having having the responsibility of managing vendor partnerships and vendor relationships, always being on the receiving end of the phone calls from recruiters that are smiling and dialing and mispronouncing the name of the company, not getting the job title right, telling me they had the perfect candidate, even though we've never had a conversation. They know nothing about me, my company, or my hiring manager needs. So I had, kind of a skewed view of what it would be like to work for an agency. So never imagined that I would be here, but it's been 4 years now and I absolutely love it. As far as the differences, what I tell people who are interested, whether it's in corporate recruiting or agency recruiting, a couple of key differences. One, in the corporate world, the jobs come to you. So just through the natural course of business, your job requisitions, they get pushed through whatever system you happen to have or whatever process you happen to have, either due to changes in business or people leave the organization. So you're not out going after the jobs. You're more focused on the strategy and then going after the talent and building your talent pipelines and filling jobs and building relationships with the business and with your hiring managers. On the agency side, you're going out and you're finding your own requisitions. And you're still doing the candidate management, candidate experience, candidate expectations, the sourcing. So the main difference is how the jobs are coming to you versus, one side they're being given to you or handed to you. On the other side, you're going out and going after them. So corporate recruiting may be the way for people who, to do recruiting if they're not very savvy on the business development side, or they don't like that salesy component to recruiting. But then if you do like that and you like building those relationships with multiple businesses, multiple leaders, multiple industries, then agency recruiting is probably a good place for a recruiter to be.
Tiffany, I think it's interesting that you definitely having been on both sides of the fence too over the years. I was actually just having coffee with a young recruiter here in town who's on the third party side, thinking about corporate. And, I said one of the things I always liked about third party was that I got to pick the managers. Sometimes I didn't. Yeah. I don't get that luxury. I've got to work every job.
Absolutely.
Volume may be different, whatever else, but yeah. Pick them is a little different.
And as a corporate recruiter, you get to know the ins and outs of an entire organization and entire operation for one business. Whereas an agency recruiter, you can specialize in an industry, you can specialize in a function, or both. Which in my case, working with Versique out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, that's what I get to do. I specialize in human resources, primarily in manufacturing and industrial businesses, and geographically Minneapolis, St. Paul. So I really get to do what I love doing, which is building relationships with people and then helping great HR people find jobs.
I'm curious, just for my own edification, what is the market like right now for you doing that specific type of work in that market?
We have the luxury here in Minneapolis, St. Paul of having just a ton ton of industry. We've got Fortune 50, Fortune 100, all the way through to, family-owned businesses, startups. There's a little kind of pocket here in this market for tech startups. And then we have, mom and pop shops. We have everything. And it's a pretty rich market when it comes to talent, in particular, human resources. And then when you dive deeper into HR, it's kind of 2 degrees of separation when it comes to talent acquisition. And then you filter it even further. It's, literally 1 to 2 degrees of separation. But when it comes to the market itself with regard to jobs, we are below the national average when it comes to unemployment. So it's literally a candidate's market. So candidates can, get multiple job offers or be considered for multiple jobs and have their choice, really. So it kind of is up to them to be incredibly selective about where they take their next job. And employers need to be very aware of the fact that, we're below 4% unemployment. And talent is plentiful, so they need to be cognizant of what their value proposition is and start making connections with those candidates so they don't lose the good ones.
Hear, hear. Same way here. Wendy, I think you've probably seen a lot of that too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Tiffany, I'd like to switch gears a little bit. We talked about your involvement with SHRM at the state level, and I know you've been very active in the community at the state and local level for some time. What's the biggest challenge you see when it comes to leading these volunteer groups at these levels?
I think there are the first 2 things that come to mind regarding volunteering and volunteer leadership is engaging volunteers, very similar to when you're at work, engaging employees. But this is what we do in our spare time. So after we've, gone to the kids' sporting events, their choir concerts, we've done our laundry, dishes are put away, the lawn is mowed, the driveway is shoveled. So this is in our spare time. These are the things that we do. So getting volunteers who are not only engaged, but highly involved and can still participate in strategic planning and then do the execution of those strategies as it relates to how we're serving our members and the other volunteers. So it's that volunteer engagement. And the other thing is just the sheer time that it does take and making sure that we're doing the right things when it comes to, planning events and planning meetings and, the preparation and the planning. So there's a lot of time management involved when it comes to volunteering, especially when you are in a leadership role, because you've got the volunteers that are coming to you, just like you're at work and you've got a team of people coming to you on a regular basis for a variety of things, even though they're volunteering and they're tasked with their own responsibilities as the leader of an association, they're still coming to me or they're still going to that leader on a regular basis. So lots of time management. It can, depending on, how much you put into it and what you want to get out of it, it can take a lot of time.
That is so true. Yeah. Volunteering on the state and local level right now. And yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And with the state level, it's not just the people on the state council, for those that are familiar with, how the affiliations work, but you have a state council and they serve as a liaison between the international organization of SHRM and the local chapters. And in the state of Minnesota, we have 12 different chapters. So it's not just the individuals that are serving on the state council. We are also a resource for the boards that make up those 12 chapters. So there is a lot of time management. There's a lot of communication involved, a lot of expectation setting. There's coaching and training. And one of the things that I absolutely love about the opportunities that I've had, both at the local chapter level as well as at the state level, is just the ability to learn and grow and develop professionally. There were things that I was able to do as a volunteer leader that helped prepare me for jobs that I was paid to do, and vice versa. So lots of professional growth, lots of professional development, and second to none networking. So I've got, as you both probably know, it helps you build your network. And literally I can pick up the phone and call someone 3 states over and say, hey, I've got XYZ job open. Who do you know that wants to relocate? Or I've got working in a multinational corporate environment. I've got an employment issue. What do you know about this particular type of situation in your state? And, give me some information that I can use to then go back and kind of reconcile this situation. So the learning and development opportunities are second to none. And then, of course, the invaluable network that I've gained over the years as a result of volunteering is unbelievable.
And I think, that kind of segues into our next question, because if it wasn't for both of us volunteering with our local and state groups, that's how we met. We got to meet in person at SHRM VLS, which was awesome. Part of that too, people, we've been trying to promote that you get to attend some awesome conferences if you volunteer.
Right.
But you've got to attend a lot of conferences. So what has been one of your favorite memories from a recent conference?
What I love about the ability to attend conferences, not just the learning piece of it, but just being the extrovert that I am, it's the intentional connecting with people that I interact with on a semi-regular basis online, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram, Twitter, whatever the case may be. But then being able to physically connect with someone, in person, go to a session, meet up between a session. I had as far as a recent, back in October of 2018, I was invited along with a colleague of mine to do a breakout session for the Ohio SHRM State Conference. And a friend of mine in North Carolina was sending one of her employees to that conference in Ohio and said, hey, you two need to meet. So from North Carolina, from Minnesota, meeting up in Ohio, because somewhere down the road, I had volunteered, connected with someone in North Carolina who then said, hey, you need to meet with this person because you two are both awesome. So making that just those connections with other professionals and the fact that there are people all across the nation and in some instances in other parts of the world that get to come together for a common purpose is just, I love that part of being involved at this level and getting to meet people in person and kind of talk about, not just what we're doing at work, but we get to catch up on, what's going on with the kids, what's going on with family and things like that. It's just, it's an extended family, essentially.
Yeah. And getting to know people on that level is key, I think. And that's what makes it really is. It makes it all work. It makes it all work. Well, Tiffany, it is now time for everyone's favorite part of our show, the half-hour question connection. And for 2019, new and improved. Well, I feel like we have a little shiny, from the new and improved commercials, like a little shiny thing that comes up. So yes. Tiffany, who was your first professional mentor? And what was the most important or impactful thing you learned from them?
I don't know that I necessarily had a professional mentor, so I didn't go through the matching of mentor-mentee, but I had, in one of my earlier jobs, I had a manager who was absolutely incredible. He was the vice president of HR, and I worked in employee development. And he just was very genuine and filled with kindness and compassion, and really wanted the individuals on his team to be successful. So he provided me with some very candid feedback. So I would be assigned projects, or I would just kind of take things and run with them. And one of the things he sat me down to talk with me about was, you need to follow through. I know that you're off doing your work, but I need you to check in with me and just kind of let me know what's going on, so that, when I'm asked about it, I can report back, the status of whatever the project happens to be. It was a smaller organization, and I was the only individual doing the work that I was doing. So there wasn't a team of people in employee development. It was just me. But the fact that he would take the time to sincerely say, here's what we need to work on and here's how I'm going to help you do it. I mean, just kind of transformed me in that job. And, now it's one of those things that I think I am really good at. So I can go off and do, start working on a project, but no, you know what? I know what I'm doing, but not everyone else knows what I'm doing. So I need to make sure that I'm following through and checking in. And that helps with recruiting as well. So you're always following up with candidates to let them know where they are in the process. And the same thing with hiring leaders. You get to tell them, hey, you know what, I'm waiting to hear back from candidates, or here's where I am with my sourcing, or here's what so it was just incredibly invaluable to have someone who was not only just incredibly smart, but, made the time to provide feedback and do so candidly.
Tiffany, who's one person you've gained in your network in the last year that you think more people should know?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not sure if there's one person over another over the last year. I'm not sure. I'd have to think about that one.
Any maybe newer people you're reading as far as blogs or anything like that?
So here's the deal. So I probably no one really comes to mind with regard to the last 12 months. But there are a couple of people that I think the world of, and one person in particular who, is just incredibly smart. And I always admire how quickly he can put pen to paper, so to speak, and just get his thoughts out there. And it always amazes me just how thought-provoking his words are. And it's Carlos Escobar.
Carlos is awesome.
Yes. He works for Alamo Colleges in San Antonio. He does have his own blog, and he's incredibly genuine. He's uber smart, but it's just, I'm incredibly and always impressed with, what he has to say, his take on the HR profession, the workplace, and just life in general. So if you've read his blog or follow him on Instagram or whatever the case may be, you'll see that he also includes a lot of photos. He makes recommendations on what to read. But it's always refreshing to read what he has to say.
I love the series that he did.
He's a previous guest on the show, but yeah.
I love the series that he did last year at SHRM, where he was taking pictures of people and just putting small quotes with them. I thought that was brilliant. So Tiffany, if you could go back to the start of your career, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself based on what you know now?
Probably go to grad school earlier, to get that additional education. But I don't like doing the undergrad and grad school back to back. But I think the gap that I had was a little bit too long. It was probably right around 10 years or so. But I think I would have done that sooner. Just to have that education, considering I made the full transition, from education into human resources, I would have gotten that HR degree probably sooner.
Tiffany, we typically ask about how you enjoy giving back to the HR community, but we've talked about that quite a bit, and we know you do. I'm going to tweak it just a little bit for this conversation. What advice would you give to someone that is trying to find a way to give back, maybe a new volunteer or what have you? What would you tell them?
I would definitely recommend, an association, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, an affiliate of the Society for Human Resource Management. There are tons of great organizations out there that are looking for great volunteers to give back. And it could be something as simple as, working with the ESGR, so supporting veterans and trying to help them get back to work by doing mock interviews or doing resume reviews. So a lot of times people are afraid to step into a volunteer role because they do think it takes so much time. But you can put in as much time as you would like. So just a matter of, finding what works for you, but absolutely, do some research, find out, what's out there. It could be, working with the Chamber of Commerce. It could be a local high school, and start with something, simple. Maybe give 2 or 3 hours of your time, a couple times a year, maybe once a month, and do something like the, resume review, mock interviews, helping people to, understand what they can expect when they do end up, in that interview, or if they're looking for a job, or what they can expect.
I'm going to piggyback on that. You don't have to be an expert.
No, you don't. You really don't. I mean, especially with high school kids or college kids that are, just starting out and they're not quite sure what to put on their resume. If they're working on projects, if they're doing, different programs within the school outside of the regular day-to-day classwork. I mean, there's a lot that they could be doing. And we as those HR professionals can help them with that.
Tiffany, what is your favorite movie?
Hands down, without a doubt, it is The Godfather.
Oh, we were watching that today. A good movie.
It is the best.
Yeah.
How about your favorite musician or band?
I have a lot that I like, but I'm going to have to go with Prince.
Have you listened to our episode with Chris Fields?
Not yet.
You're brought up.
Yes, of course.
You make an appearance. Yeah. If you need help dragging him out of Paisley, let us know.
Yes.
We'll call for help for you.
Yeah.
Wendy's offered to help.
It'll only take me 4 hours to get there. So if you can wait, yeah.
Well, it might take 4 hours to convince him that it's time to go. So it's all good.
True. True.
Well, Tiffany, he's told us he's going to get the vapors and pass out. So you're going to have to drag him out of there. And that's why Wendy's offered.
Great.
We'll get there. We'll figure it out. How about a favorite TV show?
My favorite TV show of all time is The X-Files.
It's a good show. For a long time. I haven't thought about that one in a while.
I know.
I don't
watch a ton of TV now, but when it was on, it was one of those where I had to be home this is before DVR and TiVo and all that stuff on demand. I was home every night, Sunday night, 9 Central, watching The X-Files.
I can remember when it was on Friday nights after Briscoe County Jr., a very underappreciated show. And when I was out of college, it was the late 90s. It was when the movie came out. So it was at 98, 99, something like that. My friend had just gotten married and his wife hated the show, and he called me and he's like, "Hey man, will you go to the movies with me?" I'm like, "To see what?" And he goes, "X-Files. I'll pay." My wife won't go. He was determined to take somebody with him, and I'd kind of checked out at that point. So I went and saw it, and I didn't understand what was going on at all.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
When you're not watching The Godfather or listening to Prince or watching X-Files, what else do you like? What else do you like to do outside of work?
Oh, definitely baseball. So my son plays. I have coached several of his teams in the past. So it's between, if I had my choice, we would be either, at a baseball park somewhere where we'd be at Target Field watching the Twins. I mean, the experience at Target Field is just amazing. The games aren't always that great because the Twins haven't been good for quite some time, but the field itself, the stadium itself is amazing. So anything related to baseball, whether it's, coaching my son's team, cheering him on, or, trying to cheer him on without yelling at someone from the stands is always enjoyable. Aside from that, my son also plays basketball, so I spend a lot of time in the gyms over the winter, hanging out, watching him play.
I did half expect you to say that baseball was your favorite TV show, but
no. So the order in which I do baseball is at the field, listening to it on the radio, then watching it on TV.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of watching many sports on TV. I'd rather be there. Much better. So if you weren't in the HR profession, what do you think you'd be doing?
I would be teaching. Absolutely. Without a doubt. I'd be in the classroom somewhere.
Tiffany, for the sake of this evening, we're glad you're not teaching. You're probably teaching in some way, but you're not in the classroom, because if you were, we probably wouldn't be talking to you. We probably would never have met at a conference. Right. Oh, you and I may have if I was still teaching too, but for the sake of argument, we're glad that you didn't. We're so glad that you were able to join us tonight, and again, just to catch up and talk a little bit. For those listeners that don't know you, that are going to want to go follow you now that they've heard you with us, what's the best way for them to find you out there?
I can be found on Twitter at Tiffany Kuehl, I'm also on LinkedIn, same thing, Tiffany Kuehl. And if you're interested in looking at silly pictures or pictures of me at the baseball park, I'm on Instagram as well at Tiffany Kuehl.
Excellent. We will put all that in the show notes. Wendy, how about you? How can the listeners find you out there?
The best way is via my blog, mydailyjourney.com. Daily is D as in dog, AILEY. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, mentioned at the end too, fourth Sunday of each month, you will find me on Twitter at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as part of the HR Social Hour Twitter chat. How about you, John?
HR Social Hour Podcast.podbean.com. If you go to that site, click on the left-hand side at the top, you'll find links to all my social, and you're going to find all the old episodes. Maybe if there's one that you haven't checked out yet, go ahead and give it a download. Listen, rate and review. Share as you can. Anything you can do to help us boost the signal is always appreciated. Tiffany, again, thanks for being with us tonight. And so for the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Wendy. And as always, be sure to connect,
give back, and network.
Network.
Take care, everyone.
We'll see you soon.